Welcome to Module 1, which I call Public Health and the Love of Wisdom. I call it this because I think it's important to situate public health ethics in the broader discipline of philosophy. That's where the idea of the love of wisdom comes from, and we'll get to that in a moment. This course explores ethical questions that arise in public health, but my purpose in situating it in philosophy is twofold. First, we trace the academic roots of the study of ethics to philosophy, and second, we'll emphasize the ever-important feature of questioning. As we make our way through the junction of the art of public health and the science of ethics, I want us to employ a philosophical attitude, an attitude where our common-sense understandings and our taken-for-granted assumptions about the world are all brought under scrutiny. This is the purpose of philosophy, and is this attitude that best prepares us to examine our ideas about right and wrong in the sphere of public health. First, and most generally, ethics is the science of right and wrong. It's the philosophical study of morality, and as such, it confronts the way things are, the way things should be, and the underlying assumptions that guide our thinking through the moral universe. But first, let's think about what it's not. Ethics, as an academic discipline, is not a shortcut to particularly thorny ethical dilemmas. This course is not about me telling you that a certain action in public health is right and another is wrong. I do have my ideas of such things, but this course is not about me. It's about you, and it's about clarifying how we get to our ethical conclusions. Secondly, the study of ethics is not a guide to becoming a moral person. Although our work will help us to clarify our thinking about ethical issues, it will not transform immoral people. We begin by going back to ancient Greece. Socrates, his student Plato, and in turn Plato's student Aristotle, all have important insights for our beginnings. In his writings on the nature of love, Plato shows us that to philosophize is to be the quintessential lover. We begin by loving particular individuals, Plato tells us, by being attracted to their beauty. And then we work our way up to knowledge of beauty itself, the universal, everlasting idea of the beautiful. Platonic love is to engage with another in search of these universal forms, through which we arrive at loving wisdom itself. The word philosophy comes from two Greek words, philos and sophia, and we get the sense of the love of wisdom from its etymological roots. But then what does this mean, to love wisdom? To begin thinking about this, we turn to Socrates. Almost everything we know about Socrates comes from Plato. Socrates is featured in Plato's dialogues, and in one of those dialogues, the Apology, we see 70-year-old Socrates defending himself in a court of law. Socrates is accused of corrupting the youth and of impiety against the gods. And while defending himself, Socrates tells us about the good life, about religious conviction, about the nature of truth and political power, and about the philosophical life itself. And it is in this work that we find the oft-quoted dictum that the unexamined life is not worth living. During Socrates' defense speech, he denies that he ever has the kind of knowledge that would corrupt the youth. In fact, he makes reference to a story he heard about himself being called the wisest man in ancient Athens. Socrates recounts a story told to him by his friend Chaerephon, who heard the oracle proclaim that there was no one wiser than Socrates. Socrates tells the court that he was taken aback by this claim, suggesting that there were many people who were wiser than he, and he sets off on a mission to find these wiser individuals. Socrates addresses the politicians and the poets and the artisans, all the while searching for someone who was truly wiser than he. But he finds that each only pretends to know something. Socrates comes to understand that the oracle called him wise because he wouldn't pretend to have knowledge. And knowing that you don't know is the beginning of the philosophical path, the path of wisdom. Socrates is considered the patron saint of philosophers because he embodied the philosophical spirit, the essential questioning that philosophers must engage. This examination of ourselves that Socrates, and then Plato after him, exemplified is how we begin to be lovers of wisdom. Finally, there is Aristotle. And out of all of the important accomplishments of this philosopher, accomplishments like inventing science, one of his ideas that will be important for us is that there are different types of rationality, different ways of thinking. He tells us of intellectual virtues, excellences of the mind, in contrast to other excellences like courage, generosity, and patience. And it is here that he distinguishes between theoretical wisdom and practical wisdom, what he calls theoria and phronesis. The conclusion of a piece of theoretical reasoning is a truth to be believed. The conclusion of a piece of practical reasoning is a good to be brought about. What we learn from Aristotle is that we must be mindful of the goals we have employing different modes of rationality. And so the main goal of thinking philosophically is to be mindful of the tools we employ when thinking, to pursue wisdom as we would a lover, and to know when we don't know. Questioning is the essential philosophic position. So we see that philosophy is all about questions, asking why, like the 2-year-old pestering their parents. Why, until the parent finally in frustration says, because I say so. We will hold to the first part of that equation, the asking part. But this is not asking for the sake of asking. Philosophers engage questioning as the source of value. The value of philosophy lies in 4 key elements. These elements are why philosophy is important and why they underlie all of what we're going to be doing in our exploration of public health ethics. First, illuminating prejudice. It is said that without philosophy we are imprisoned in our prejudices, and for our purposes, I want us to understand prejudices not as uninformed use of stereotypes in speaking about race or gender or sexual orientation, but as prejudgments. We need these prejudgments to make sense of the world around us, but we must be aware of their existence. Philosophy can help us with that. It can help us to see where prejudices come from and how they may hijack our reasoning. We question our common sense, our habitual beliefs, and our unreasoned convictions. Philosophy can also help to combat dogmatism. Dogmatism is when we know we are right and we are not listening to any other points of view. For the dogmatist, the world is obvious and finite, and no questions are raised, and unfamiliar possibilities are contemptuously rejected. By opening us up for questioning, philosophy helps us out of our dogmatic boxes. Third, philosophy suggests problematization. By questioning, even that which seems obvious becomes a problem that requires our philosophical attention. Finally, the value of philosophy lies in its ability to make us accept uncertainty. It's been said that there's an inverse relationship between certainty and being right. And once we open ourselves to thinking differently, more possibilities for action become open. Philosophy can help with that. We return to the quote attributed to Socrates, that the unexamined life is not worth living. And it is not worth living because without examination, without questioning, our lives are not our own. Philosophy allows us to claim ourselves and to be truly autonomous, setting the law of our lives for ourselves. And so the point of public health ethics is to engage these questions. As a philosophical project, the purpose is to recognize prejudice and dogmatism, to make a problem out of that which we take for granted, and to recognize and accept the inherent uncertainty of our answers. The point of philosophy is to recognize these things in ourselves. As we make our way through the ethical issues of public health, we will see the importance of philosophy. Engaging the questions of public health ethics is to embark on the philosophical journey towards loving wisdom. And as we make our way through the ethics of public health, an important element is to recognize those 4 values in ourselves, for only then do we begin to become truly wise.